What the heck happened? Is my submission to the GMTK Game Jam for 2026. That's surprisingly hard to say. This video will consist of mostly unscripted commentary as to kind of play through the game and talk about how it was made and my thoughts on it. This is a puzzle game, so after a few levels you decide, hey, this looks pretty fun, I want to play it for myself. Please pause the video and do so, link in the description, because otherwise I will be spoiling the entire thing. Alright, let's just get into it. So here we are, dropped right into level 1. As you could tell, this game doesn't actually have a title screen, it jumps right into a cutscene. That's something I've never done in a game jam before. Usually I kind of throw together a rather quick title screen and just a bunch of text on the screen for a tutorial. Yeah, I really didn't want to do that this time around. I want to focus a little bit more on story, if you could call it that. The inspiration behind this game is basically that meme where the guy walks in the room, just everything's on fire. Yeah, that's that. Also, quick editor note here. I realized my character that walks into the room bears a striking resemblance to Troy. I swear that was just a coincidence. Now addressing the game itself. I have been competed in a few jams up to this point, and year after year I found myself getting more and more burnt out. I have a real problem with scope creep in these jams. Like, I want to create an idea that's cool and interesting, but usually they're too complex to really pull off in the short time frame. So this time I wanted to focus on making a puzzle game that consists of a series of well-defined components that when put together breed complexity. So the first thing players will probably see is this little tooltip here. Question mark is kind of universal for help, I hope, and players didn't seem to get lost, so I think it worked. Just describes basic controls, the basic objective, but most of the game kind of just explains itself. So if you hover over to this item pane, you'll see this is a plant. And it tells you that even the pot is flammable. Yeah, humor is probably one of the things I think I do best, and I was glad I was able to find a place in the game to kind of shove that in. So here we can see the plant catches fire when exposed to heat, and after one tick it turns to ash. Now you may not quite understand what that means, but let's just select it and put it somewhere. Now this level is designed specifically to be small. There's very few places you can actually place something, like you can place it on basically any one of these tiles. But you can see there's something interesting here. Maybe you don't know what this is, but the game's basically telling you exactly where to put the component. So let's just hit start and see what happens. And then you can see we beat the level. Basically what the level is trying to do is it's telling you these little transparent icons is like the end state. This is what you need to accomplish. And you need to use your knowledge of the components to get there. So as you can see, as the heat from the furnace spreads out, it has this little orange tile on the floor. This indicates that this tile is hot. And as you can see, plants respond to heat. I also have the text in the color that corresponds to like the tiles, so heat is also orange. Thought that was a nice little feedback there. And you can see that this white thing here is probably ash. So let's just hit start again. And now we can move on to the next level. Here we're in level 2, called Chain Reaction. This one looks pretty identical to the first level, and that's by design. As you can see now we have 3 plants to work with, exactly the same, but now we also have this plant in the corner that was there before, but now it wants to be ash too. Now this is the first level you can kind of play around a little bit. Maybe I want to put some plants out like this. And that didn't work. And the component that you missed will be highlighted in red. Now one of the things I wanted to focus on this game was to not have like very specific solutions. I wanted players to be able to place components as they felt, well, looked interesting and just see what happens. For this I basically created like an entire chemistry system. Under the hood there's a thing called the data map, which consists of a 2D array of integers, and each integer is a series of bit flags, things like heat, water, which we'll see later, and even object, which is useful for collision. Basically every tick, every component, such as a plant, can ever read or write from the data map. So maybe it might read to see if its tile is hot, and if it is, then it spawns fire. Now fire doesn't read from the data map, but it can write heat of its own to the data map. And tick after tick, this basically compounds until you have, well, a raging inferno. Honestly, considering how complicated the system seems, I think I implemented it pretty well. So let's just go ahead and hit reset, try again, and we'll do what seems a little more natural, is to build a line of plants like this. You can see tick after tick, the fire just spreads. And oh, that's what happened. Yeah, this little end state, by the way, was one of the last things I added. I literally had this door sprite in every single map as I was building the game, but I literally had no idea what to do with it. I just put it there because I thought, well, this office needs some kind of entrance. And I was trying to figure out, well, what's a fun way to convey to the player that they beat the levels? Like, oh, just have the guy walk through the door, duh. Anyway, here we go. Level 3, choose your fuel. Now this is the first instance of a level that maybe you can fail. So let's just try grabbing our plant and putting him here. And we got a new component, the chair. Now we've seen the chair in the previous levels, but it's the first time we can actually place it ourselves. So this is the chair. It's made from recycled firewood. I don't know what that means. And it catches fire when exposed to heat, but unlike the plant, this one burns infinitely. Which is the word I spelt wrong a couple times. Good thing I caught that typo. So let's just hit start and see what happens. And that's not quite right. Even though we got the fire to spread in the right directions, you can see this one was supposed to be in fire and this one's supposed to be ash. This is an example of, well, the first level that kind of makes you think about what components go where. So this has to be a plant, and this has to be a chair. But other than that, you can kind of place stuff wherever you want. You can put 2 chairs on one side. I'll hit start. And that worked. Or you can put a plant here and a chair here. This is something else we really wanted to happen in this game. This is this idea of like more than one solution. The game doesn't check for components in the right place, it checks that the end state's correct. However you get there is up to you. Also, this guy's totally standing on fire, and that is intentional. Here we go, level 4, very hot beverage. This is another small map that introduces 2 brand new components. So first of all, we got the coffee table, i.e. coffee on a table. And it spills when it receives a shove. We haven't heard of that action yet, but the spilt liquid is hot. And again, that's written in orange, indicate this probably adds heat to the data map. And then we have Shove Guy. If there's one thing I didn't expect to make in this jam, it was like actual characters. People in the comments loved the Shove Guy, or as they refer to him as Push Guy. So this is Shove Guy, you should report him to HR, and he shoves the object in front of him. Motivation unknown. Now these are 2 new components we've never seen before, but again, small map, not a lot of places you can put it. If you kind of read it a little bit and use your brain, you think, okay, probably need to put the table here, and probably need to put Shove Guy here. And let's see what happens. Yeah, I love the idea that this coffee is so hot that it causes fire. Again, this is another example of really wanting to lean into that humor, because players aren't going to be here for long, so really try to make it have a good time while they're here. And I also love the guy that Shove Guy just shoves things for literally no reason. So that's what I like to call a initial action, something that starts at the beginning of the game and doesn't need an action to trigger. Here we have level 5, indoor forest fire. As you can see, we have a lot of plants and every single one of them needs to be ash. Yeah, this is like, when I pictured the idea for this game, this was the level. I wanted to make a chain reaction where you could just burn down an entire forest of plants. So you can see we have 3 chairs, 2 Shove Guys, and 2 coffee tables. This is the first like less tutorial level and more, let's see if you understand what you're doing. So first of all, I'm going to show you what happens when you kind of just play around. So let's put Shove Guy down here, some coffee tables, some chairs, and we're going to need a chair by the furnace as well. And that almost worked, but you can see one plant didn't fully burn to ash before the countdown hit 0. To be honest, the countdown doesn't really matter that much in this game. It's mostly just putting components in the right places. But there are a few levels in which it does make a difference, and this is probably one of them. So what you were actually supposed to do is you're supposed to move Shove Guy back a bit. And I believe this will work? Question mark. Yeah, that did work. You can also put Shove Guy like 1 block over here. There's a few solutions that work here. Again, he's staying on fire, but that's a-okay. Okay, here we got Conga Line. Now, we got a new component here, but let's skip him for now and just put Shove Guy down how we've always been doing it and see what happens. That's not quite right, because that plant turned to ash. What we want it to do is be on fire. This is another example of a level where countdown actually matters. If we just do the obvious solution, it doesn't work. We need to imply a new component. This is Domino Guy, and you should stop asking him for pizza. When he receives a shove, falls forward. I think you can understand where this is going. So move this guy back quite a bit, and let's put a few Domino Guys. And there we go. That's able to delay the timer so that by the time the countdown hits 0, the plant's still on fire. If it waited one more tick, it would have turned to ash. Now, if you think these sprites look a bit odd, to be honest, this is the one asset for this game I didn't create in the jam. These are actually used from my previous jams. Honestly, if I have any regrets for this jam, this is probably it. I wish I tried to make some custom characters. An alternate name for this game was What the Duck Happened, and all the characters would be ducks, including a duck in a business tie. I don't know if that would have made people enjoy the game more, but I think that's something I wanted to experiment with. I think for the next stream, I'm definitely going to try to make all unique assets. Level 7 Fire Suppression System. This is where we kind of change directional, but I'll show you what I mean. Let's just hit start and see what happens. That's not quite right. Yeah, this is a not fire symbol. To be honest, this one was a little bit hacked together. I realized halfway through the levels that I wanted the ability to check if something was not on fire, which the game wasn't really built to handle. It checks for components in the right place, not a lack of components. So I kind of had to use this little hacky solution in the code to make it work. Basically, the idea is we want to stop this thing from being on fire, but these components are already placed. We can't remove them. We can't touch them. So we have to figure out some way of not letting that be on fire. Thankfully, we have ourselves a new component. This is a sprinkler for fire suppression or for fun. Creates water when detects heat. So let's just put that in a place that makes logical sense. So you see it catches on fire, but then it detects the heat and then eventually puts it out. You can see there's a bit of a delay to that. I kind of struggled to make puzzles using that feature, to be honest. Initially, I had this thing always be on, just because that worked a little bit better, but I felt that was a bit not interesting. So instead I decided, hey, let's just kind of work with that tick delay a little bit. And I believe this next level touches on that. So this is bad fire suppression system. You can see we have a few things in place. Well, we need a plant here, so let's go ahead and do that. And we got a couple shove guys and a sprinkler. So let's put the sprinkler here to put the fires out, and let's just use shove guy for now. And that didn't work because the plant is still here. Or, sorry, it wanted the plant here, but it burnt to ash. Now, see this limitation. Because of the tick delay for the sprinkler detecting heat, then it puts water in a tile, and then the fire gets put out, it can't actually save plants. It can only save chairs. So what you need to do is move Chef Guy back a bit and use Domino Guy to extend the delay. Now, if you caught what happened there, is because the chair caught on fire before the plant, it triggers the sprinkler system. So by the time the plant catches on fire, the water is already on, so it can put it out before it burns. Kind of clever. Or hacky, depending on how you look at it. Level 9, save the chair. This is another sprinkler system. It's kind of funny. Basically, you have this whole forest of trees, but the only item you're able to save here is the chair. So it makes sense, again, put the sprinkler in the one place it can save the chair. Now let's just hit start and see what happens. And that didn't quite work. Why? Because the countdown hit 0 before the sprinkler could put the chair out. Okay, we also got some plants. So this seems a bit unintuitive. If we're trying to stop fire, why do we need fire? Well, there's two furnaces here because there's actually two solutions. But if you put the plants like this, you see the sprinkler is triggered ahead of time, and in that case, the chair actually never catches on fire at all. And we got level 10, Shove Guy's Redemption. This is back to the store again. This one, again, is pretty obvious what to do. We need a plant here, so let's place one. And we got Shove Guy. Obviously, this is going to spread the fire, and that's going to be bad. But we do have Shove Guy. Now, we don't know what this component is. We've seen the water cooler in the background of a lot of levels so far, but we've never been able to place it, and therefore we've never gotten its little tooltip. But again, I'm hoping this level kind of intuitively you can just understand what to do. So let's just hit start and see what happens. In video, we saw Shove Guy shove the water cooler, which spilled water, which saved the plant. Hence, Shove Guy's redemption, because up to this point he's only started fires. And then we got level 11, called Nevermind. This again looks pretty identical, so let's just see what happens. Put the chair where it needs to go, and let's put Shove Guy down here. Yeah, so now Shove Guy pushes water onto... This sprite's a little hard to see. It's supposed to be like a computer. It's also been in the background of a few levels so far. And if that interacts with water, it creates fire. So now we got fire and water working together. This is called poor planning. This level gets a little bit trickier. Honestly, it's hard to tell how hard these levels are because I just choose a layout that looks fun and then put the end states in accordingly, and then hopefully players can figure out what's going on. I think most people played this game and ended up beating it, so I think I did a good job there. We're going to need a few plants like this. And, oh, actually, let me do this. Let's put 3 plants along here because this kind of shows, I guess, a little bit of a trap. So yes, you can use the plants to reach the chair. And the chair is correctly on fire, but this plant was also supposed to be burned. So what we can do is we can use a sprinkler system and a computer. Oh, I guess the first time we've seen the computer, isn't it? As the computer, beep boop, please don't explode. Catches fire when exposed to water. So the heat of the furnace will cause it to sprinkle, and that catches the computer on fire, and then, oh look, it burned down. There's also an alternate solution to this puzzle where you just basically do the opposite. So you have plants here, plant there, let's say, and then sprinkler and computer. Again, this is another example of just more than one solution. So that works too. Level 13, fire and water. Now we got quite a few components to work with, including the water cooler for the first time. So every office has one, which it does. And if Shove spills his water. And this is another level with multiple solutions. You need one solution that uses fire and one solution uses water, but which one you use on which doesn't matter. So let's start with Shove Guy like that, I think. And then we'll put a coffee table here and a water cooler up here. We'll use the computer and we'll use the chair. I think this chair is actually optional. For example, you could just not use it and put this here instead. Like so. Another example of a level that doesn't actually need all of its components, which is cool. And here we go, level 14. Everything is here. I wanted one big final level to kind of just use every component. Honestly, I'm not sure how hard this one is. Again, I just did something that looks cool, but let's kind of break it down. Well, so we have Domino Guy here, which means we're going to need a Shove Guy in behind him, so it actually does something. Looks like we're going to need a chair here as well. This would be a good chance to just kind of hit start and just see if you're on the right track. Yeah, there's no fast forward button. That was not really in scope. You can see we correctly got not fire here, and we also got not fire here, which is, I guess, technically worked, but we didn't get fire here and we didn't get ash down here. So let's try that again. Let's see. Well, this is a sprinkler system. Okay, one thing we could try is we could put, say, a chair here. If this needs to be on fire, then we need something that burns infinitely. I'm actually having to think about this one. It's been a while since I made this puzzle. I guess it is tricky after all. Okay, I got an idea. And by that I mean I remember how to solve the puzzle. So let's put Shove Guy here. And let's put the coffee table here. Now this will put this chair on fire, which we don't want. Remember, there's a sprinkler system here, which will trigger and put it out. What we can do is we can chain that with a computer to create more fire to burn this down, and a plant to then bring the ash over here. And finally, we'll put a plant over here that will chain down from the furnace. In just about enough time, we managed to do it. And then we got level 15, the end. Small room, no components, no end state. Hit start. And that's all, folks. I liked having this little last level as kind of like the end instead of doing like a generic title screen again. So yeah, that was what the heck happened. Honestly, this was a pretty good game, I think. Like, this is probably the first time I feel like I really executed my vision for a game jam. All the levels are fun. I think they're very intuitive. A lot of people in the comments really expressed how like intuitive everything was introduced, which yeah, that's great. That's exactly what I wanted. I think I managed to add a decent number of components so things felt varied, and you had some interesting levels where they're all chained together. As for some of the results, for audio, I ranked 290, which was interesting. These are all basic, like, stock sound effects, but I think I used them very well, which is why that ranked highly. In terms of artwork, that was 1830. Not too bad, to be honest. I don't think the art's necessarily very good in this game, but it's definitely functional. I think it's something I kind of learned during this jam is it doesn't really matter how objectively good something looks. What matters is it clear there was effort put in, right? Like, for example, my plant sprite isn't a very good plant, but it definitely looks like a plant, you know? There's definitely some intention put in some of like the lighting and the shading. I think that part is what really matters. And as for the two categories I probably cared about most, creativity and enjoyments, that was free 5 and free 9. Considering it was over 10,000 entries in this jam, ranking in like 300 is literally the top like 3% almost. That is incredible, actually. I don't think I could be any happier about how this game did. If you still haven't played this game yet, sorry I just spoiled everything, but if you did take my earlier advice and played it already, great, hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, that's all I really have to say about that. So until next time, this has been Binary Soup, and I don't really have an outro.